Alrighty. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of She's of Love. Today, we have a recorded episode because we're having some technical difficulties. But nonetheless, we are so excited to introduce Angelique Moselle onto the show this week. Another brand new guest, first time guest, which is always such a beautiful thing. I love these episodes. So I guess I'll start as we always do, and I'll hand over the mic to you and ask you, what is your awakening story?
Well, awakening's an interesting topic because it's like you can awaken on so many things, right?
Mm.
So I would say that my major awakening story started when I was 19 and I had a near-death experience.
Wow. At 19.
Yeah. So I was a drug addict and I was at a rave. We had gone to a rave in Cincinnati and I had done a lot of drugs. I had done meth and smoked a bunch of weed and had been drinking. And then when I got there, I took a pill of ecstasy. And then a few
Wow.
hours later, I asked the drug dealer if he had any more ecstasy. And he said, I don't have any more X, but I have PCP. And I said, all right, that's fine. I'll take that. And I had never done that before. And it was this giant horse pill of PCP. And by this time, it's like 5 in the morning. So I'd already been up all night long, at this rave. Raves are these. Back when I was younger in the 90s, raves were a big thing and they would be at these warehouses and,
I've been to
you just
many.
have you? Oh,
Yes.
okay. And yeah, so
Yep.
and so they go till early in the morning and then they have after parties after that.
Yes.
So I took the PCP early in the morning, then the rave was over. And we went back to our hotel because at that time I lived in Nashville. So we were in Cincinnati, Ohio for this rave. And at the hotel, I started having overdose symptoms. And my friends were all leaving to go to an after party. And I was like, well, I'm not going because I'm not feeling right. Something's wrong. I think I'm having an overdose. And, you know, they went ahead and went to the after party, and I stayed at the hotel by myself. And I was in the bathtub and I started feeling my whole body going numb, like my feet
Wow.
started going numb, and then my legs, and it just was moving up my whole body. And then I started feeling my soul being pulled out through the back of my head, like right here at the nape of my neck. And it
You could
was,
feel that.
yeah, yeah. And I kept
God.
like using my will to pull it back into my body. I kept pulling it back into my body.
So what did that
And
feel like? Was it like a peeling feeling? What was that like?
you're the first person that ever asked me that. It was like a, it was like uh, almost like there was a rope, like right back here at the nape of my neck, tethered to this force inside of me and was like being pulled out like this.
Far out,
Whoa.
man.
Like so I could
That's
feel
so
it
crazy.
like going through this like little portal back here. And I kept pulling it in because I knew if that goes all the way out, I'm gone. So I kept
Mm.
pulling it back in. And then I slipped into some other kind of dimension because from that point to the very end of the experience, uh, all I have is this kind of interdimensional uh, remembrance.
Yeah,
So I
right.
went into some kind of in between and met this tsunami of energy, like just like truly, if you're standing at the ocean, you look at the ocean, you're like, wow, it's massive and intimidating and gorgeous at the same time. And then imagine if you were standing there when a tsunami was right in front of you, the way you would feel. That's what it felt like. And it wasn't like there was any color. It was just this tsunami of energy. And I called it God. And it replied back to me and this is all telepathic. It replied back to me, a better name is Geschichte, which that's a German word, which I didn't even know that at the time. And so I'm having a telepathic conversation, interpreting a German word in this experience, which I didn't find out it was a German word until much later, because my dad is a theologian. He has a PhD in religion. And
Wow.
when I told him about this experience, finally, he said, "Tell me that word again." And I told him, and he said, "That's the word that's used in the study of theology for the Holy History." And so
Oh my
that's when I
God.
learned the name that was given to
Yo,
me.
and that's crazy.
Isn't
You
that
got
isn't
told
that
that word and
amazing?
you had no idea. And then
Yeah,
you
But
talk to your dad.
that's like all the information of all time. The Holy History was
exactly.
in that energy.
Yes. Yes.
That's
Wow.
wild.
Yes. And I didn't know that until, let's see, so that happened when I was 19. And my dad told me what the word was and what it meant when I was 39, maybe
Wow.
40.
Wow.
So I'm 47 now, so it wasn't that long ago,
So you didn't tell him
And
for all that time.
yeah,
Wow. Well, did you think you would
yeah.
scare him?
No, didn't, it didn't really come up. I mean, by that time I was out of the house and my dad lived in another state than me, and we just never talked about that. But at the time I had, well, I'll tell you that in a minute. But
Yeah.
so in this experience where I meet this energy and we start communicating telepathically, I'm saying to it, I don't want to die. I didn't mean to overdose. And I just started being just flooded with this awareness about how I was disrespecting my life.
Right.
And I was disrespecting the most beautiful gift that was given to me, which was life. And I started to see my life completely different, because up until that point, I was rather depressed. I had had some abuse in my childhood, and then I had had some issues mentally, which that's a whole other story, which is
Yeah.
interesting as well. But I, I wasn't a joyful person. I
Yeah.
was a troubled person. And so I wasn't thinking about it like using myself as a drug dumpster was disrespectful. I was just taking
Yeah.
drugs,
Yeah.
and having
Because you were
fun.
feeling the feels.
Yeah. And, I liked going to these raves and dancing and stuff, and I liked losing myself in the music. And I still miss that part, actually, but obviously there was excessive drug use. So I said, "I'm so sorry." I felt just incredibly sorry, incredibly regretful. And I said, "If I am allowed to live, I will stop doing all hard drugs, and I will clean up my life, and I'll do whatever is asked of me." And that was the gist of the conversation, but a lot happened during that time. I was shown my funeral. And so I saw all of these people that were at my funeral and how upset they were. And that was a really interesting thing to see, because I I really didn't feel like that many people loved me. I didn't think I never thought, if I die, everyone's going to be so sad. So it was very humbling to see how upset people were. And then it wasn't, I could feel how upset they were. So then I started being able to feel the pain that I had caused people. And it was, it was, it was incredibly humbling. The entire experience was more humbling than I can really describe,
Yeah.
because when you're standing with that energy and it's holding you accountable to everything, People call that life review. A lot of people talk about life review that have had near-death experiences, and it was like that. It was definitely a life review. And the life review was basically, here, you're going to experience the other side. You're going to experience the effect you had on others. And at that point, it wasn't a very positive effect that I had had on others. And
Yeah,
I
right.
became very aware of it. And at some point, I passed out and was on the bed. I don't remember how I ever got out of the bathtub, how I got on the bed, but 5 hours later, from when this started, I woke up and my friends were all coming back from their after party. And I felt different because I remembered the whole thing and I was traumatized by it because it was also a very scary experience. It wasn't like what a lot of near-death experiences are like, where it's just, oh, there was a light. And, mine wasn't like that. Mine was very like, you're going to be held accountable right now and it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
And that's,
Yeah.
but that is what really started me on my awakening path. And remember the agreement I made, well, if I get to live, then I will dedicate my life to whatever is asked of me. Well, after that happened, I started having strange things happen to me. So I'm an artist, and at that time, I was a manager of a framing shop. We framed artwork, and we did a lot of bulk orders. And every day after this experience, at around midday, noon, one, something like that, I would get so tired. And before that, I was an insomniac, so I never got tired like that before. But I started getting so tired that midday I would have to lie down on the table, which is the tables are wood with a layer of carpet on them, and that's how you frame because you don't want to scratch the frames. I would just get up there on that hard surface and completely pass out. I'm supposed to be managing a frame shop, but I literally couldn't keep my eyes open, and I was there by myself. And we didn't have a lot of traffic because we did a lot of bulk orders. And this would happen to me like every day for a year. And during that time, my body would be totally paralyzed and I couldn't move anything. I couldn't open my eyes, but I could hear. And it sounded like there were people around me. I couldn't fully make out what they were saying or anything, but I heard all these voices around me. And that happened to me every day for a while. Now I think I was being recalibrated for something, but at the time it just was freaking weird.
That's
And
so
then,
weird. Yeah.
yes, it was so weird. And I had really, really bad anxiety after that because when you almost die and go through that kind of experience, it's pretty traumatizing. So I really was traumatized by it. And so I had that going on. But then all this other stuff started happening where I started becoming more energetically aware. So like when people would talk to me, I started being able to feel some type of dissonance with the things that people were saying, and then I would be feeling something different. And now I know what all of that is because I've been in this training for so long, but at first it was very disorienting and I couldn't figure out what was happening to me. And I was already very open. So, I told you I had mental problems when I was younger. I heard voices and that kind of stuff, and had even gone into a mental institution when I was younger and was put on medication for hearing voices and that kind of thing. Now I know I've just been far more open than a lot of people. And I wasn't tuned correctly because of the abuse that I experienced and the trauma I experienced. So I was tuned to some dark things.
Yeah.
But after this near-death experience, when I turned 22, I I met a teacher who she was really incredible. She was a doctor of psychology, but she did not practice normal psychology. She had created her own method. She was a Native American shaman, and she was what's called a walk-in, which means when she was young, she had had stage 4 cancer, died on the table, And she said she remembered the soul that was in her leaving and an angel walking in. And so she would channel the angel Michael, and I learned from her in all of those facets for over a decade. And she really helped me with the the openness. She helped me learn how to attune correctly. She helped me with, more than I can even tell you guys here. But I trained with her, I learned with her, and then I apprenticed with her for that period of time. And by the time I was 34, I was having my own channeling experiences where the energy that I met in my near-death experience and the work that we had done to mesh started to line up in such a way that that energy would come through and speak and teach. And so from the time I was 34 until now, that's what I've been doing. So that's what my classes are, my uh, the wisdom teachings that we do, the one-on-ones, all of that is that dynamic. So I would say that that's my main awakening, and it was an awakening about who we really are as human beings, probably the ultimate awakening. And within, the structure of who we are, so the way that I've learned from Geschichte about the structure of human beings, they call it the 8 fields of human existence. And each field, I would say, there's its own awakening in regard to it. And I've had different awakening processes through that whole thing. So I would say then the next awakening probably was in, like, I would say it started to be field 8, the physical existence, where I started learning that everything that we were told here has been lies. So one of the very first things in field 8 that I woke up to was food. So I had been vegetarian and just really bought into the whole plant-based thing. And by the time I had my second child, when I was 40, I was having very, very serious health problems. And I thought, I'm healthy. Why am I having these health problems? But I was having like pre-diabetic type health problems, really, really severe stuff. And I prayed about it. And one day I was on Instagram and this guy named Sean Baker came up. And I was like, and he was talking about something called the carnivore diet. And at first I thought it was a joke and I started laughing. So I was like, what? People only eating meat. And then I realized he wasn't joking. He was being totally serious. And then I realized, oh my gosh, I think this is the answer to my prayer right now. And I'm kind of disoriented by the thought of it. But I told Keith about it and I was like, I feel like this is the answer to my prayer and I have to try it. He was like, I'll do it. Sounds great. I was like, I think it sounds terrible. And so we both tried it. And within, I don't know, 3, 4 weeks, I felt completely different. My mood changed. I was no longer having the blood sugar issues. I was sleeping better. I wasn't bloated. Like my health started to get better immediately. And that that experience made me start going, what's going on here? That we've been lied to about food. And then, of course, you guys have talked to Keith, so you know his background. He's incredibly knowledgeable with the human body. He was like, well, it doesn't make sense. Our human anatomy is definitely made for meat. We don't have the digestive tract of the animals that eat constant vegetables and whatnot. So I would say that was the next part of my awakening. And maybe a smaller part that happened before that was when my first child was uh, really little and I was seeing a chiropractor and we got on the subject of vaccines. And he said, well, I would never vaccinate my kids because I consider that child abuse. And I said, what? And he goes, let me give you a couple books to read and you can decide yourself. And so I read those books and that was the last of that. So then when the whole COVID thing started happening, I was like, this seems like a vaccine campaign, you know? So I had that kind of awakening there. And then I would say also that I had another kind of awakening from my first marriage where it was such a toxic relationship. And the person I was married to was so incredibly manipulative and just abusive in different ways that I had a very serious awakening from that whole thing. When I think that prepped me for what happened in 2020,
Yeah.
because when I really saw that, when I really saw his lies for what they were and realized that it had all been just facade, it had all been just a continuation of different types of gaslighting, and it's like something in me that was able to be manipulated broke. And from that point forward, it's been really difficult for me to be manipulated. So I really have to thank him for being so bleh, and teaching me that and waking up from that, you know?
Yeah.
And then, you know, I feel like it's been just a consistent waking up in different areas.
Mm.
I don't know that it ever stops. We've all been very asleep here, and this whole world has been so incredibly inverted that we'll probably all be spending our entire lives waking up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the times that we're living in right now,
Yeah.
because the internet, I feel like the internet has had a big influence on being able to access information. Because my kids, I know I didn't grow up with the internet, whereas my kids did. So Juliet had access to videos and to things that were asking questions about stuff that my generation just took for granted. And she was, she was saying, Mum, you should watch this video. And I'd be like, what? Like, this is crazy. Like, but eventually you start to kind of go, hang on a minute, there's something in that. Like, it's not so crazy anymore. It's like when you're a child and you believe in Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny, and then all your friends around you are starting to go, hang on a minute, you really believe that stuff? Like, how old are you?
Yeah.
And then you start to realize, hang on a minute, all the adults are in on the secret. The whole world is in on the secret. Like, they all know. And I didn't know. And now I'm kind of going, all my friends are going, ha, 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 you didn't know. And then that's the feeling that I got when I started to see how upside down things were and the reasoning for it, because I could feel that it was upside down. I could feel that things weren't right, but I couldn't explain it. I didn't have the words. I couldn't see the detail of the thing. And you're right. It's like this series of small awakenings. It's like, oh, and you see something over there and you go, oh, that's what that is. And then you see something else. And then it's almost like once your eyes have been opened, you start to see everything.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it can be my personal, like you talking about how you had that near death experience, and also your first marriage kind of priming you to kind of see things differently after that. That was a similar thing that happened to me because I was adopted. And my parents didn't tell me I was adopted. I found out when I was 26. And so I knew that that kind of big lie could happen where your whole identity is hidden from you. And so I knew that that could happen. It was very familiar to me. So when I started to realize, oh, there's, lies happening, and they're pretty bloody big lies too, I was like, yeah, that can happen. I was already aware that this type of huge, big production can actually happen, because a lot of people don't believe it. They think, oh, it's too big. It can't be like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's too, it's too much for my imagination to wrap my head around. But it can absolutely happen. And I knew that. So when Juliet was talking to me about things and trying to bring my awareness to things, I was like, wow, that's that's so weird. That's so weird. Like, food is just one thing. The lies around food is just one of those many, many, many topics that we could bring up today about how we've been lied to. And, you know, being set in your ways, I think that is just one of them. Like, being the personal one for me was being set in my ways, being so rigid on things. And when I had my awakening, I realized that no, being so rigid sometimes can block you from finding the truth of stuff. Even the little nuances of things can block you, because you're like, no, I'm going to just be vegetarian, or no, I'm just going to be, Christian, or no, I'm just going to be, I'm so set on my view of the
Oh,
world,
yeah.
you
That's
know.
one thing that I was thinking about. It was one of those like shower thoughts that kind of took my whole being over today. And it was like, God, we are literally living on a floating rock, plummeting through space, circling a star, along with, seven or eight other planets, seven other planets, I don't know, however many other planets. And there's billions and billions and billions and billions of other stars zooming through the same space. And also this like infinite universe that we can barely even like, we can't fathom, is also growing and expanding. And we think we know what is up. We think we
Yeah,
know
we got it all figured out.
why it's here. We think we know anything. It's just like, we've created this God figure, or, I think, and I'm not, you know, rejecting it. I think it's us humans trying to make sense of what it, what is going on.
Yeah.
But we don't know. And we create wars, we kill each other over, you know,
Who's right and wrong?
who's right and wrong. And it's like, any of us think we know? You think
Right.
you know what's going on? Like, I don't, how? Because no, like, no one knows what's going on. Like, how do you explain life and this existence? It's literally the most like, and this is why I don't have drugs, because I have these thoughts while I'm sober.
Me
Like,
too.
I trip out. I don't need anything because I will trip out even more. I'm already tripping out, and it's like 8 a.m. in the morning, and I've just woken up and I'm still tripping out. But yeah, like, it just, it's just like, it just really, really confuses me and like baffles me how we think we have a clue. Because, a few hundred years ago, understandable, we didn't know that we were hurtling through space, and, or, we thought there was a this like dome around us, and, who knows. But now we know that there's so much more out there, and that there's probably aliens and other creatures, and we just
And
want to
even
keep
that is
pretending.
just scratching the surface as well, Juliet. Like,
Yeah.
we think we know now, but who knows in 50, 100 years what will come out
Yeah.
of, you know, reality.
Well, and then to think about now, once you realize that our entire reality is full of lies and that the lies
Mm.
we've been told have been happening for thousands of years, then
Mm-hmm.
what did we know in our history that's been covered up and inverted?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's the question.
Yeah.
You
So
know?
Yeah,
much
that's the big
stuff.
question, isn't it?
Everything.
It's like,
I
well,
mean,
what is true then? What is the truth?
yeah. It's it's such a difficult world to navigate because yeah, things have the world is changing so quickly now, and we have the internet, and like especially my generation is hooked on convenience. Like all we want is convenient, quick, don't want to think about things. The world, I think, hurts a bit too much for us to
Yeah, so true,
Mm.
Juliet. So
like
true.
it, because we're constantly told like that, the world is ending, that everything is dying, and there's this big, you know, movement of just hopelessness for the future, which I disagree with completely. And I think it's a really unfortunate and toxic way of living. And um, yeah, it makes me really sad because once you give up hope, then you lose respect for the planet, which then perpetuates the belief that you're, holding of like, the planet is quote unquote dying. And like also I've said this on the podcast before, the planet is not dying. We will die. If anything happens, she'll kick us off, you know? Not that I think it's gonna happen, but she gets to decide. We don't get to. This is another case of humans thinking we know what's up and that, like we have control. No, she will kick us off. If she's done with us, she
Yeah.
will kick us off.
Yeah, it's
Um,
absolutely human narcissism because
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you when you really look at Earth and then you look at humans, we're like, all you have to do is fly on a plane. And when
Mm,
you're looking down, it's like you can't really see humans. That's how small they are. So we're like these little
mm,
bugs that can
yeah.
easily be smushed.
yeah,
But,
Yes.
if 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 the ones who want to have control can siphon negative energy off of the ones that they're emotionally manipulating, then they can have the energy they need to create the reality that they want. And
yes,
that's what's happening right now. And,
Mhm.
my oldest son is 2 years older than you. And he talks to me sometimes about these types of concepts. And it's like your generation really gets bombarded with this
yeah,
hopelessness.
Mm,
And I think your generation really gets targeted
yeah,
to be emotionally manipulated.
yeah. And to be
mm,
victims,
And
to
mhm,
feel like
and
victims because they feel powerless. And
yeah.
when you get stuck in that victim mentality, you're like, you give up. You're like, oh, what's the point? And so of course those types of thoughts and that ethos, that kind of worldview is easier to manipulate. It's easier to control somebody who has that attitude of, well, what's the point?
mm,
Well, yeah, and when you consider that we know that human consciousness creates reality, right?
Yeah,
We've done
mm,
we know that when thousands of humans come together in a state of coherence and focus on peace, that violence decreases.
yeah,
We know that when humans come together and focus on, you know, curing an illness or shrinking tumors, that there are results. We know that when humans come together and focus on machines, the machines change. So when humans don't know that and they're constantly being fed fear porn about how the world's going to end, think about all the movies we watch, the the narratives that are running all the time, even the music, everything you're supposed to be upset about if you actually care. The whole thing is a manipulation to use human consciousness to create a reality that people who want control want to create. And the thing is that people who want to control, they do not have the leverage of the energy of life itself because they're not in harmony with that energy of life blueprint to be generative. So they have to siphon energy. And, one thing I learned from my first marriage was how that happens. That that humans have the ability to manipulate someone into an emotional state. And then when that emotional charge is given off, it's a lot of energy that's given off, then the person who's doing the manipulation can grab that energy and use it. And so if anyone who's been in a relationship where somebody's doing that, you constantly feel drained, you feel
Yes.
hopeless, you don't have a sense of focus, you don't have a sense of motivation, and you end up really feeling controlled by something that you can't put your finger on. And I see that dynamic in the whole world. And it's
Yes.
like, humans just really need to figure out that we carry the creation codes and that when we just ignore all of the fear porn, not to be in a state of denial, but to go, all right, these are issues that we need to figure out solutions to. Let's combine in states of consciousness that are coherent states. Let's use our creativity to create new and beautiful things, to create solutions together. And let's just leave behind all of the fear porn, doomsday nonsense. Let's just use our consciousness, our collective consciousness, to move in a different direction. But, if you look online, there's so much fear porn.
Yeah.
It's just and everyone is like addicted to blaming each other and talking about, how the doomsday scenario is unfolding, whether you're talking about politics or AI or the state of the world. It's all the same script, basically, energetically.
Yeah.
Be afraid, become so afraid that you're paralyzed, sit around on your phone and bitch, and do nothing. And it's
Yeah.
like that consciousness is creating the world that we don't want. So we have to learn how to be diligent and go, okay, that's fear is seductive, but I'm not playing along.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what do I want to create? And to practice states of being. What did the people meditating and holding a state of peace teach us? That when enough people hold that state coherently, violence decreases.
Yeah.
Right? We know that. So why aren't we doing that? Why aren't we? I mean, I am doing that. Every wisdom teaching that we have is doing that. We're bringing people together to hold states of coherence. But in my opinion, it should be thousands of people that are doing it at a time, at least hundreds, so that we can really hold states of consciousness together and just move everything in a different direction. There's way more of us than there are the people that want to control everything.
Yes, so true. That's so true. And how uplifting and positive is that, though?
Yeah.
Like the issue I see happening here is that people aren't seeing that fact. They're not understanding that there's a huge power in numbers when we stick together. My son is 15 and he came to me the other day, and it gives me hope when I hear stuff like this coming from young people. He came to me the other day and he said, Mum, Australians are so addicted to the news. And I was like, he's 15 and he can see that, And I said, how do you know? Because I know that that's true from conversations that I have with people, and just the fact that the amount of airtime that the news gets in this country is incredible. And he said, because when I go to my friends' houses, because we don't have a TV at our house, right? He said, when I go to my friends' houses, it's on all the time. In the background, it's just going and going and going and going. The news is going constantly. Whereas at our house, we don't have a television. So we we don't have that noise constantly in the background. We have a conscious decision to actually go and watch something, right? So we choose, okay, that's what I want to watch, and we put it on our computer or whatever. But
Mhm.
it's not like in the living room constantly chattering at us. And that's something he hasn't grown up with that. So when he goes to other people's houses, he sees the TV and it's foreign to him. It's like, oh, and it's constantly on and it's always the news.
Mm.
And so it's like this companion that people feel like they have to have in their life, telling them what's going on in the world and not realizing that actually that fear porn is what keeps their vibration low and
Yeah.
keeps them, they feel like they're informed because they're watching the news and the news is telling them what's going on in the world. So they feel like they're informed. And that's why they watch it, because they want to be informed. They feel like there's an emotional obligation for them to watch it. And they're not realizing that that's actually what's keeping them tethered to this baseline of fear. And all they need to do is switch it off. Make a choice and switch it off. And it's like everything. If you make a conscious choice to say, well, I'm not going to buy in anymore. I'm going to talk to my neighbors. I'm going to go outside. I'm going to look at the sky. I'm going to listen to the birds chirping. I'm going to look at my surroundings and what's happening in my neighborhood, and the things that I can see right here outside my window don't correspond with what I'm watching on the telly. It's completely and utterly polar opposites. There's no war outside my door. There's no fear in the street. It's all inside my house, and I'm choosing it because I'm watching the television. And I think
Mm.
that just that one thing, if we could, particularly Australians, if we could stop watching that stuff, if we could just say, it's not for me anymore, it would really change people's outlook on the future. And the next generations that are coming through, and I'm grateful that my son doesn't watch TV, they're not going to be getting that same messaging. They're going to be getting messaging that they want to generate for themselves. I want to watch something uplifting. I want to be connected to something joyful, and have a choice in the matter, instead of just being indoctrinated to listen to the same negative stuff all the time, and the fear mongering, and because it's such a huge controlling mechanism in our world. It's
Yeah,
massive.
and I think the biggest control mechanism of it is to show us a bunch of negative things, and then to have our next intent as humans is going to be, how can I fix that? And then to go, I can't.
Yeah.
And so it's like being aware of things that are happening is good, but we need to have a way to go, this is how I engage my power in
Mm,
regard to the negative things that are happening. And when we just
Mm.
stop at the news, never mind the fact that half of it's probably lies anyway, but when we just stop at the news, which is, by the way, all negative, why isn't there any
it is.
positive news, right? But when we only stop there and our next, revelation is there's nothing I can do about it, then we just immediately go into hopelessness about it. And so
Mm.
it's a losing game.
Yeah,
And so it's like awareness is only good if you engage your true power with it.
that's
And our
right.
our and it's like our true power, we need to start realizing that our true power really is in our consciousness and in our states of being. It's the one spot that really we have control over and it can't be hijacked. Writing letters
Mm.
to politicians and all that kind of stuff. It's not that we shouldn't do it, but there's no real power in it because
Mm,
we have no way of knowing how someone's going to respond. We don't know if who we're writing to gives a crap or if they're, part of some dark side. We don't we have the only power we have in that is to write the letter of intent, right? But when it comes to states of consciousness, when it comes to states of being, that's something that each and every one of us can practice internally. And we can become beacons. And it's not dependent upon any external factor because we have imagination. And so if we continue to let our imaginations be fed by all the fear porn, then what we do in our internal space is we create a lot of darkness. And then we hold states of being that are toxic. And if we just, like you said, if we focus on the things in our life that actually bring us coherent states of being, that actually bring us states of comfort, bring us states of joy, bring us states of, upliftedness, then, and we learn, we train ourselves, we discipline ourselves to remain in that space, to see life from that space, then we start to change the world around us from doing that. But, that I think that has been hijacked so much because when you say that to the majority of people, they roll their eyes.
Yeah, they
Like,
do.
that's stupid. Like if you're not going down to the courthouse, if you're not, writing letters to your politicians, if you're not protesting in the streets, you're not doing anything. And it's like
Yeah.
that stuff is what's not really doing anything. You're trying to play on their playground.
Yes.
You need to play on the real playground. You need to play in the playground of energy that precedes matter. We know that energy precedes matter. So why don't we change this structure energetically first and just watch how it unfolds? Because that's the real magic of God, is that when you hold the state of being, and especially when humans hold it together, reality starts to match it. And you don't
Yeah.
have to figure out how it's going to match it. That's that's the magic of God. You just have to be able to hold the state and to be able to hold it with one another.
Yeah.
And I think that's the next frontier for all of us,
Yeah, I
is to
agree.
really start becoming more disciplined in what we're generating energetically, what we're generating emotionally,
Yeah.
what we're generating in our imaginations, so that a new world opens up that's possible instead
Yeah.
of the one that we've been fed and that's sitting in all of our subconscious like it has to come into reality. And it's like it doesn't. The doomsday of the planet, the doomsday of AI, none of that has to come into creation the way that we've all been fed that it's going to.
Yeah.
100%.
So
Yeah.
true. Wow.
Wow.
Well, we've come to an hour now, pretty much.
All right. That was
So
fast.
I know.
yeah.
Angelique, will you come on again with us?
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Amazing.
Amazing. Yeah. I look forward to talking with you again because I've loved hearing your story and talking about all these amazing theories and topics that we do need to be talking about more of. So yeah, I've loved this. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, you're welcome. I've enjoyed it too, guys. Thank you.
Amazing. Alrighty.
Bye,
Well,
everyone.
bye everybody, and we'll see you next
Bye.
week.
All right.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.